as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the urgency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing WebEx through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. All members of the Budget Review Committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen to this meeting through dialing the following number: 1-978-990-5298 and using the password 273974. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. B, we're providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashuanh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall. C, that we're providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you get connected. And D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. We will start by taking the roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Alderman O'Brien, would you call the roll? You're on mute.
There we go, much better. You got me now?
Gotcha.
Alderwoman at Large, Shoshana Kelly. Alderman at Large, Michael O'Brien is present, and I am alone, and I can hear the proceedings. Alderman at Large, Laurie Wilshire.
I am here, I am alone, and I can hear everyone. I am social distancing.
Alderman Jan Schmidt.
I'm here. I'm the only human in the room, and I am social distancing for the order of the governor.
Alderman Richard A. Dowd.
Yes, can hear you. I'm alone, practicing social distancing in accordance with the governor's instructions. And good to go.
Also in attendance is Alderman Clay. Are there any other aldermen I did not call?
You missed Clemons.
You might have missed me too.
Who is that?
Alderwoman Kelly.
You were called. Okay, I got you down now.
And I'm here too.
Any other aldermen that I...
Alderman Jette.
Okay, everybody else go on mute, please.
All right, Alderman Jette, you were called too, but I could see you were on. Also in attendance is Fire Chief Ryan Rhodes, Assistant Fire Chief Walker, Deputy Chiefs Buxton, Gearhard, and there may be another one that I cannot see on camera. Also in attendance is Fire Commissioners Davison, Grant, Burgess, and also City CFO Griffin. Is there anybody else in attendance I did not call? Okay, seeing none.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but Alderman Liu it's saying that she's speaking, but we're not seeing her. I don't know if she just can't be heard or,
Alderman Lou, are you present?
She's not showing up on the meeting list.
does keep coming across my screen and saying, speaker, Elizabeth Lou.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought I was logging on to the Concom Commission and I guess I used the wrong WebEx, but so I am here and I'm here. Thank you very much, Alderman Clee.
Okay.
Thank you, Alderman Lou. Mr. Chairman, you have 6 voting members of the Budget Review Committee present.
Okay.
Alderman
I
Clemens
think
is
we
here.
get
I don't
some,
know if that makes number 7 or what.
yeah, Alderman Clemons is on.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That makes 7.
Thank you. We have a full complement. Alderman O'Brien, communications. Oh,
Yes, from Susan Lovering, City Clerk. Responses to the budget questions from Alderman-at-Large, Ben Clemons. From Kim Kleiner, Administration Services Director, Reason, Administrative Services Division. Response to Alderman Clemens' budget questions. From Tim Cummings, Economic Development Director. Reason, responses to Alderman Clemens' budget questions. From Bill Mansfield, Radio Systems Manager. Response to questions from Alderman Clemens.
there being no objection, I'll accept the communications from the city clerk, administrative services director, economic development director, and radio systems manager and place them on file. Unfinished business,
There is none.
new business resolutions.
Before us this evening is R20-030, relative to the transfer of $10,000 from the Department 156 Emergency Management from account number 54407 Software Maintenance to account 51300 Payroll Overtime. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for final passage by roll call.
Okay. Mr. Griffin, did you want to explain that, or is there anybody else that was here to
I
explain the
could,
legislation?
I could explain it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
As Director Cates indicated when he appeared before you folks, he indicated that he no longer needed that line item for Code Red services, software maintenance. And due to the pandemic breaking out in early March, he needed to provide overtime to his staff member. So this is a situation where fortunately money in his budget, and because it's moving from non-salary to salary, the Board of Aldermen needs to approve that transfer. So I would recommend the transfer on behalf of Director Cates.
does anyone have any questions on the legislation? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clemens,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jette,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that's 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. Motion goes forward to the full board with a recommendation from the Budget Committee for final passage. All right. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Also before this evening is R-20-034. Approving the cost items of sidebar agreement between the National Board of Police Commissioners and the 5 National Police Department unions regarding a police department recruiting incentive. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to recommend final passage by roll call.
Okay, I don't see anybody from the police department, but this is a sidebar between a labor board and the unions. It comes to us because it has finance implications, although they're minor, very minor. And we can just vote it up or down. We cannot take any other action on a sidebar. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Griffin?
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing more to add. Thank you.
Okay, is there any questions on the legislation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Alderman Clements and then Alderman Wiltshire.
Can someone explain what exactly what is in the sidebar and what we are voting on?
I think
I
I have
understand we're voting yes or no. It's just I'd like to know what exactly it is.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
It's a $500 for payment towards recruiting. If a officer in the department finds another officer that gets hired, they get a $500 incentive. The reason behind that is they're really looking to get up to full complement. And it's more likely that someone who is a police officer might know someone who wants to be or is currently a certified police officer. And I think it's short money to get our police department back up to full staff. So I'm going to support this. It's $500 for every time they get someone or recommend someone. I don't think they'll be spending that much money on this, but I think any little incentive helps to get them back to where they need to be.
Well said, Alderman Clements. I think that total amount they expect to spend is probably around $2,000.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so Alderman Clee.
Thank you. I have more of a comment than anything. When I worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs, at that point, it was very difficult to get nursing staff and of that ilk. And this is one of the things that they actually did. They did. It was $150 back then, but that was back in the late '90s, early 2000s. And they would do this type of thing too. And you're absolutely right. That's exactly what we found. Is that nurses do nurses, and police will know police, fire will know fire, and it works very well. And once you up to full complement, it tends to just to go away. So, I'm not a voting member, but I think it's a good idea.
Okay, and I just note Alderman O'Brien that Alderman Gathrights joined us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other questions relative to the sidebar agreement? Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien, would you call the roll?
Alderman Clements,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jette,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, it's 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries, and we will recommend final passage. New business ordinances?
There is none.
Okay. Table, we're not going to talk to anything that's on the table tonight. So next, Alderman O'Brien, would you read take from the table, the budget?
Yes. Table in committee is R-20-016, amending the purpose of a fiscal year 2020.
No.
Oh, that's the wrong one. Excuse me. Stay with me. 2023, which is relative to the adoption of the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget for the City of Nashua General Enterprise and Special Revenue Funds. There will be a public hearing on May 20th, 2020 at 7 p.m. via WebEx. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to remove R 2023 from the table by roll call.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Clemons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jette,
Yes.
Alderman Wiltshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, today we, between IT legal and Donna and myself, we now have a process for the public hearing to be handled via WebEx on 5/20. The information will be going out, I believe, tomorrow to everyone so that you'll have the information, but it will be by WebEx. The public will be able to ask questions online. And we'll go through each and every one of the departments. We should have at least one person from each division to answer questions, but more on that later. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about Department 152, the Fire Department. Appropriations are on page 135. Who would like to open it up on behalf of the Fire Department?
I will, Mr. Chairman. Fire Chief Brian Rhodes.
Okay,
Well, first and foremost, thank you very much to the Budget Committee for this opportunity to present our FY21 budget. With the permission of the chair, I have a few questions for the, I have one question for the board, and then I would like to have your permission to give a little background history as to the fire department.
sure.
So my first question would be, for the aldermen in attendance, did you receive the overview document that I sent out about 2 or 3 months ago, which details the fire department from top to bottom?
Yeah, he's nodding.
Okay, we're nodding, thank you. So the reason I sent that out was, the biggest thing that we need to understand here is we are a labor-intensive organization. That's what we do. We're a people organization, and the service we provide takes people. We came before the board 2 years ago. So now I want to get into a little history. I apologize. We came before the board 2 years ago with a need. Well, actually, it was 4 years ago, but it took us an additional 2 years to get it. Our fire alarm staffing was the same as it had been for the previous 40 years plus. We showed the need. The board was gracious enough to approve it. But at that time, and I say this with all due respect, God rest his soul, Chairman McCarthy said to the full board, understand that you will need to fund these 4 positions fully in the next year's budget. So we're in the current year where the current year would have been FY 17 or 18, I believe. And we got approval for 4 new dispatchers, which brought our complement up to 3 dispatchers 24/7. Those dispatchers were funded for 1/4 of the year. So there was the total salary, which equated to 1 employee for a year, but we had 4 employees we hired in April for the last quarter. So we started into the budget preparations for FY19, and we soon realized, look, we have a problem here. You did not fund this properly because you didn't bring the numbers up. But during that time, we said, look, we're going to try to do our best. And the ambulance contract was up at the time. I had conversed with fire chiefs in the 2 comparable cities to our north and south. That would be Manchester and Lowell. They were both charging for dispatch services, which is the same that we did. So we ended up, we were successful in negotiating a new contract with AMR for 5 years with 5 additional one-year options with a potential of approximately $4 million of revenue to the city. Well, we thought that the city was going to fund these 4 positions, and we were going to use some of that money to supplement our budget, primarily our non-payroll budget, which had been flat for 14 years. And we said this last year, same thing, 14 years we were flat. So we were able to successfully negotiate this contract. The first year of the contract was for 9 months so that we could line it up. The way the contracts were, the previous contract was, we tried to line it up so we could get aligned with fiscal years for the city. So we brought in $350,000 to the city. Well, lo and behold, that money was used to supplement our budget. So it really wasn't additional money that we brought in. It was additional money we brought in, but it wasn't used to the way we thought it was going to be used to help us. So that money gets rolled into now our payroll line. So that money's there forever now. It's not coming out. So we come around to last year's budget, and we bring in $350,000. We were able to put $50,000 into our non-payroll operating budget, which takes care of everything under the sun, other than obviously payroll, for 7 buildings, 40 vehicles, all the equipment, all that. But the mayor gave us a $150,000 mayoral adjustment. So we did like we always do in the fire department. We make do. We go out and we get FEMA grants, and we try to get equipment. One of these grants we did last year was we reduced the city's surf liability by taking 3 vehicles off the road and replacing it with a federally funded $700,000 vehicle. That's going to last the city well over 20 years. We have probably, I'm not sure about the school department, we probably currently have the highest percentage of employees on the high deductible plan. And obviously there's going to be more coming up. So we start last year in the previous contract. Well, first let me take this. Let me say this. There's one other person in this fire department of 180 people that has more seniority than I do. And for my 30 plus years in this organization, it has never been a good time for the fire department. I mean no disrespect to anyone when I say that. I understand it. And trust me, I understand the times we're in. It's just extremely frustrating. Our firefighters do an incredible job for our city every day. The last contract the firefighters had was a 4-year contract. They had 8.5% over 4 years. And they took a 0 for an entire year in the middle of that run. I don't know how many other city unions took a 0 at that time. We're at a point, so we're in the best economy that we've had. We're in a blue chip economy. So their contract runs out in July of 19. We're in a blue chip economy. We're at the lowest historical rates of unemployment we've ever seen. We're at the lowest rate of vacancies in occupancies in the city. The city is starting to grow. We're throwing up hundreds, if not thousands, of multiple family units in the city. So it's, we say Okay, let's see what we can do with firefighters here. We engaged in a robust negotiations. And when I say robust, it went approximately 9 months. So I can assure you that the administration or the city did not roll over. The firefighters union, and by all rights, they shouldn't have to, did not. They stuck firm to their guns like they should. And it took us about 9 months to come to a tentative agreement. And we thought, based upon the environment, it was fair. It was a fair agreement. They deserve it. They've been doing the Safe Station program for 3 years for no additional compensation. And they've done an incredible job with that. We get to the point where we get a tentative agreement. And those of you who know contracts know that just because you have a tentative agreement doesn't mean this is going to fly now, because you have red line copies, you have all of these things that have to take place so everybody can see it. The firefighters union needs to ratify it. It needs to be presented to the Board of Aldermen, which is why you haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to get to that. COVID-19 hits. We're in the middle of a world pandemic that none of us have ever lived through. So that's why I say I totally understand the predicament we're in. But because of the bylaws of the firefighters union, they cannot get a ratification meeting together because they cannot have gatherings large enough because their vote must be under a secret ballot. So then we get into the budget proceedings. So we have a tentative agreement. We have to present our budget. So the budget we are presenting to you is representative of the tentative agreement that we have with the firefighters union that you haven't seen yet. So this is, to coin a phrase from a major, this is the perfect storm for us. This is a perfect storm. And again, we are very empathetic to what's going on. We understand what's happening. But I just wanted you to understand where we're coming from with this budget. We feel, myself, Assistant Chief Walker, the command staff, the Board of Fire Commissioners, we feel this is a fair contract that we have a tentative agreement on. But again, I don't know how much we can discuss this tonight because you haven't even been presented it yet because the union hasn't had the opportunity to ratify it. So our number, which you're seeing for our budget, you're saying, holy cow, what is this number from? Where is this coming from? So I just wanted to give you some background as to where we were. There's no way we could come in here and present a budget anything less than the tentative agreement. So I hope I've given you some understanding. I mean no, and I meant no disrespect to anyone on the board. I fully understand the position you're in. I'm just, as the leader of this organization of 179 other incredible individuals who do an incredible job for our citizens every day and have continued to do an incredible job through this COVID-19 event, I'm just extremely frustrated. I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions regarding to numbers, I'm going to defer that to Assistant Chief Walker. But if there's any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you. Thank you.
Okay, I just caution all the aldermen that we cannot ask questions about the specifics of the contract because we have not seen it yet. If you have general questions that you'd like to ask relative to the fire department, please let me know.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do.
Alderman Clemons.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. My first is that, so if I understand you correctly, Chief, the the budget that was before the 500,000 and so cut that the mayor made was the budget that you were looking for. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So my second question then I think would be to the CFO if he's still here. Or I don't know if Mr. Fredette is here. I know in SURF we have several things in public works that we're paying for cash, lots of big vehicles and things like that. And my question is, I'm wondering if we might be able to bond 500,000 or so worth of those vehicles and transfer the 500,000 back into this budget, either through an escrow or some other way, so that we can make this budget whole. And that is my my question.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, John Griffin, CFO. We did discuss that on April 16th when Treasurer Fredette and I were in attendance. The SURF account is a fund that has appropriations put into it, and you, the Board of Aldermen approves the spend out of it. And that spend out of it, as Treasurer Fredette indicated, is made up of cash, bondings, and grants. What Alderman Clemons would like to contemplate is to reduce that cash drain of, I believe the number's in the $2.3 million range, bring that down to 1.8 and bond some of the large vehicles that are purchased with cash by the Department of Public Works. What it does is it spreads the, mathematically, it reduces the cash drain, and it takes vehicles that may have a 7-year life and bonds them lower in the immediate drain. So mathematically, that can happen. What we've done with SURF, just to expound on that just a bit, SURF was essentially intended to pay with everything with cash. But as Treasurer Fredette indicated back in 2010, when we redid the plan, we have to bond fire trucks, fire apparatus, both ladder and engine, and we've have to bond the Packer trucks, the refuse trucks, and solid waste. That there was no other way we could fund on an annual basis the amount of needs that the SURF would have. So I'd say, practically speaking, that could happen. Just want to say that SURF, as the mayor has indicated in his presentation, SURF is one of the areas that we've had a hard time funding. We usually backfill it with appropriations not spent in the ensuing years. So, and bonding more things is certainly a problem. It's just we haven't done that. We've limited the bonding to the items that I just mentioned. So hopefully that helps. Thank you.
All set, Alderman Clemons?
Yeah, just a comment. Thank you very much for the explanation. I understand that, traditionally that this is SURF isn't something that we bond stuff out of. We pay cash, and that's what it's for. But I said the other night, we're in extraordinary times, and sometimes when you're in extraordinary times, you need to do extraordinary things. And we need to be able to help the taxpayer we need to reduce this budget and make sure that we're not putting too much of a burden on the taxpayer. On the flip side of that, we have to make sure that we're taking care of the people who take care of us. And that's our police, our firemen, teachers, basically any city employee. So for me, that is a reasonable way that we can come to an agreement without really affecting the tax rate too much. Obviously, there's cost to bonding, but right now rates are extremely low. It's actually a really, really, really good time to bond. So, you know, if there was going to be a time that we were going to do something like this, now would be the time to do it. And that would be my proposal, Mr. Chairman. And it is something that I'm going to work on and look into a little bit more, because I think that this would help address the concerns that the chief brought up at the beginning of the meeting. And it would balance the needs of the city, the taxpayers, the fire department, and still obviously give those vehicles to Public Works as well. So that's my 2 cents, and that's where I think we should go. Thank you.
Okay, when we get to our budget wrap-up sessions, that's when we'll make motions to fine-tune the budget one way or the other. And if you want to research that and prepare a motion, you know, you can bring it to the budget committee at that time.
Yes, I will do that.
Okay, and just to reiterate, Chief, that there was a bottom line cut by the mayor of $500K. I'll make sure I got the right number. It's too small, 500 and something K. And that takes into account the funds to support the tentative contract for what's missing for FY20, because part of that's in contingency now, but the balance would be in that number, plus the amount for the contract for FY 2021. And as we discussed, there's a little other things that are small amount of money that are covered in that 500K as well for other things. The one thing is that we can't make a final determination on that number until we know what the contract looks like. So we're sort of in a catch-22 with a time frame running out. So we will have to address that when we get to the wrap up. We have a public hearing on the 20th, and then we'll be starting our wrap up sessions after that. Any other questions for the fire department? Oh, Mr. Griffin, you want to just amplify something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Griffin, CFO. I knew I was missing something, so I appreciate it. With respect to Alderman Clemons' proposal, the only drain on the FY21 budget is what Treasurer Fredette and I reviewed, was the transfers at $500,000. That would be where you'd reduce that to zero if you were going to reduce the appropriations for fiscal 21. It might make more sense when we all get back together. I know Mr. Alderman Clemons would understand that. It's the appropriation that we need to reduce for this year. And that's the only appropriation we're making this year into SURF.
Okay, I understand that. I will, I'll send you an email separately, and maybe we can, you can go over that with me, and we'll, you know, just put that in writing so that I can present that at some further time. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay. Also, when we do approve the final budget, whatever is in that number for the fire department that's relative to a contract that hasn't been approved yet will go into contingency. Correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I please have Assistant Chief Walker provide a little bit more clarity to your previous statement?
Sure. Assistant Chief Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a clarification on the fiscal 20 budget, there was a contingency put aside for a tentative agreement. Under this tentative agreement, there is a shortfall from what was put in to contingency and what this contract calls for. So I just want to make that clarification. It is not in this number. What is in this number is the compound from that year to this year. So I just wanted to make sure that we understood that.
Okay, Alderman Jette, I think, had a question. Mr. Griffin, did you want to amplify anything?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. If Assistant Chief Walker, what he's doing is he's pointing out on page 135 of his budget, the amount that's put in under salary adjustments, the 438,000. That's the amount that was put into contingency last year. He's indicating that that number pursuant to the tentative agreement would be short. Just wanted to add some optics to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Jette? Right, there you go.
Yes. So maybe I'm getting a hint that my question may be in that area that you're telling us we can't really ask about. But when I look at the budget, I see it's pretty. There are some little differences, but it's pretty well level funded from last year to next year, except for item 51900, salary adjustments. It goes from 438,000 to 1,144,000. Is that is that because of this tentative agreement? Is that where that we can't ask about, or is that something you can answer?
Mr. Griffin?
I can probably answer that.
Assistant Chief Walker can answer that. Thank you.
Okay.
So the 438 under the 2020 budget is the contingency for the fiscal year 20 potential agreement. What you see under the mayor's proposed, under our 21 request, is all of the contractual costs with this new contract. It totals up into that. You'll see some other adjustments along the operating side of the budget, which is some utility increases based on the rates that we were given. But most of the costs are rolled into that salary adjustment as it is technically contingency.
Okay, just to follow up, was the they in 2020 when they did the budget, they had a certain amount percentage of increase that they anticipated they would settle a contract for, and they put that in contingency, and that's in contingency at the 438. And what they're saying is that the tentative agreement that they have with the union for 2020 requires more funds for 2020 to be put in, as well as the funds to cover for 2021. Does that make it clearer, Alderman Jette?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr.
All
Chairman.
right. Yes, who?
Don Davidson.
Oh, hey, Don. Go ahead.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments before you folks get into the nuts and bolts that Chief Walker will fill you in on if you need it. As from the commissioner's perspective, in order to help you what you have in front of you with this budget, we can say categorically that the budget monies is totally driven by the contract that they do not officially have yet because you haven't passed it. But we can't go forward with a budget for next year without having funds to cover a potential contract.
trust me, for all of you aldermen who have to deal with this all the time, this is not an excessive contract. And there's a couple of you that were around when I was, and you know that I always frowned on anything that was excessive. In the case of this fire department, this is not excessive. But because we had a gap from last year's contingency to meet the requirements of the tentative contract, you have that little discrepancy in the funds that are in contingency not quite meeting the 2020 piece of it. Remember, the fire department hasn't had a new contract since last July. The potential, the chief just talked about the perfect storm that the fire department has been through at this time, where everything had come together. We're moving forward to send you the contract and do the budget, and the world collapsed. Well, you guys have a perfect storm too coming up. And I certainly know from my past experience, it's not going to be easy for you to figure it out. I mean, I even raised the thought from my point of view that it's going to be so chaotic for you when you try to match revenues, anticipated revenues, with the information you're going to get saying you're not going to get that amount of revenue, that you're going to have trouble trying to put a budget together that's going to go through next July. I mean, numbers wise. Yeah, it has a potential of a heck of an increase in taxes, but it's because the COVID that's going to be there, because it wiped out your current revenues. Even the revenues that come into the city on a day-by-day basis are way down. And then you top that with the revenues you get from the state, which are probably going to be non-existent. You've got a problem. I am very sympathetic to it. I'm glad to say I haven't been there as bad as you're going to go through, but I certainly understand it. But from my position, I want you to know that the board also echoes that this contract is not off the wall. And when you see it and compare it with other contracts in the city, you will agree. The issue is so severe to us about having a budget passed without funds in for this budget, funds in for this contract or some other contract if it has to go back to the board, is the potential for having our services affected in this as we go forward. The fire department provides this city with top-notch services. If you go into the fire arena, you will find that Nashua Fire Department is one of the best in the whole New England. And we ought to all be proud of it. I know we are. I just can't urge enough that you take into consideration the impact of having a final budget that does not allow us to move forward with a contract. If this budget went through as it is now, we don't have anything in the budget for a new contract. Nothing. Because that cut is so, would be so detrimental to it. So I just want to say, and I'll let Assistant Chief Walker give you all of the specifics of the line items, that this board is totally in support of the budget as we presented it originally, and we are in support of the contract when it gets to you. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for us on specific line items? Alderman Lou?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is the shortfall from from 2020 budget?
What do you mean?
With the fire department? My understanding is there was a shortfall.
So
Is this the Chief Walker?
the shortfall will be the difference between what we put into the fiscal 20 contingency and what the final number is in the collective bargaining tentative agreement.
I'm sorry, was there a figure there?
I would give you about 150,000.
Thank you. And I just had one other question.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Davison mentioned that it had been, the department had not had a new contract since last July. That's less than a year ago. Is that unusual?
I'm not sure who you're asking, but we would love to have contracts solved before the other contract runs out, but it's not unusual. The DPW contract, how long, Alderman O'Brien, how long has that been since it hasn't been resolved?
Yeah, it has been a while. I think what Alderman Lou is referring to, the past agreement terminated last July. Now, traditionally, all unions within the city, as what Alderman Dowd has explained, they start their negotiations with a letter of intent, and they both agree, so they can meet while the that current contract is still legitimate. However, they do, if the meetings go and the negotiations go on longer, then that contract that they are under terminates, and usually there's an evergreen, some extension that they agree to until they come up with a new agreement. So what we're at right now is the old contract terminated July 1st. This will take effect basically July 1st. The old contract terminated June 31st of last year. So this one that we're talking about here would take effect July 1st of 2020.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. May I just follow up with that? Alderman
Yes,
Davis?
go ahead, Alderman Lou.
So I see. So they've been without a contract for 10 months.
Basically.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
By the way, they still get paid because they get paid under the terms of the old contract.
Yeah, I understand that. Thank you. I'm all set.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Chief, yeah. So for transparency, I think it's safe to say it's been 1 year without a contract. It's been 1 year since this process has started, since the letter of intent and since we began the formal negotiation process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other questions on any particular line items? Alderman Jette?
Yes, if I could, back to that line item 51900, the 438, I understand was put in for contingency to cover a new contract which has never been executed. So you haven't spent any of that money. But when a new contract is executed, that 438,000, is that, would you have to spend that to cover the whatever they weren't paid during, whatever the difference is between the new contract and the old contract? So whatever they weren't paid since last July 1st, you're going to have to make that up to them? Is that where that 400,000?
Deputy Chief Walker? Can't hear you. Still can't hear you. There's another.
Basically, while he's trying to get it fixed, the answer is correct. That monies that was put aside goes towards that portion of the new contract added to the current contract for the past 10 months, 11 months. And it's short according to the new contract.
Whatever is finally determined for their pay raise for 2020, they will get paid in retrospect.
Okay, and could I follow up?
Sure.
And so the 1,144,000 for 21 would be new money for the new contract beginning July 1st of 2020.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Anything else that Chief Rhodes and Deputy Chief Walker, anything else you want to add? Or commissioners? No?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see a microphone there, so I'm wondering if they haven't enabled their internet audio.
Yeah, they're technical experts coming. There you go.
How's that?
Okay.
You got us?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. So just to finish this up, again, we totally understand the position we're in. And we thank you for listening to our presentation tonight. But one thing I'd like to leave you with is, as good as we are at Nashua Fire Rescue, we were not prepared for COVID-19 with our current slate of administration, which those of you on the board who have been around a while know, we had a second assistant chief that was cut in 2006 that we've been unable to get. So very early on in this, I came to the very real realization that we needed to do something different. So we transitioned Deputy Chief Steve Buxton from a shift commander's role and created an incident management team. We worked very closely with Local 789, the leadership, and we've got a memorandum of understanding that was probably one of the most vague and open-ended MOUs that will ever be signed in the history of organized labor and management. But what that allowed us to do is we were able to bring in Captain Jim Kirk from Local 789, Captain Glenn Nielsen, Captain Mark Hooley, Private Phil McCallum, and Private Nick Pantademus. And the work they did with policies, procedures, research, I am convinced saved us as an organization from floundering. But more importantly, it saved the city the potential of tens of thousands of dollars because of all of the different procedures and policies they put in place, keep our members safe and our members' families safe, both at home and at work. We could have never done without them. So yet again, this is another example of the professionalism of our firefighters in the city of Nashua, because they didn't have to do this. This was a leap of faith. This stuff was totally out of the box. We took, they did all kinds of modeling. They took, to reduce our overtime liability and to keep us in a service-ready state. We created acting lieutenants. We moved people up. So we made all of our openings at the bottom of the pay scale and not the top. And this has gone a long way as to why we are not totally underwater at this point. Because again, our business takes people. we are very fortunate that you support us as a elected body, as a city. Without people, we can't do what we do. So I will leave it at that. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Again, I meant no disrespect to anyone this evening. It's just a frustrating time for all of us. But I just want all to know that regardless of what happens tonight, Nashua Fire Rescue is here for you, and we are here for the citizens of Nashua. Thank you.
Okay, Chief, I don't think we'll be taking any motions tonight, so, but Alderman Wilshire?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Rhodes, I don't think anyone takes any offense to anything you've brought before us tonight or any other time. You're a good advocate for your department. You have a great department, and I just want to put that out there. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Madam President.
Anyone else would like to add anything? No?
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes, Alderman Clemons.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say, echo what President Wilshire said. You know, I totally agree with what she said there, and you know, we do have, and also what Commissioner Davidson said is you know, we do have one of the best fire departments in New England, and it's my intention to. I especially appreciate Commissioner Davidson's words, because if he's saying that, you know, basically in order to move forward, you need that money, that's something that, you know, coming from him, who's been around the block a few times more than I have, then I think that's something that we should all heed. And so that's why I'm going to be working hard to come up with a way that doesn't negatively impact this budget to get you that money, Chief. And hopefully my colleagues on the Board of Aldermen will support that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so, you know, just from my standpoint, obviously, you know, our fire department is second to none. I work closely with a lot of the guys, and I can tell you that they're professional at their job. They know what they're doing, and hopefully we can get to a reasonable position on the 2021 budget that everybody can live with. Okay, so that wraps up the fire department. I need unless there's somebody else, motion from Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to table R-20-023 relative to the adoption fiscal year 2021 proposed budget for the City of Nashua General Enterprise and Special Revenue Funds by roll call.
Okay, please call the roll.
Alderman Clemons.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Jette.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, there's 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Our 2023 is tabled until Thursday evening. Okay. Our 2028 should be listed as being tabled. That was tabled, and until we hear from the mayor and the economic development director, that's going to probably stay on the table. Next is general discussion. Our next meeting is Thursday night, when we'll be taking up the Department of Public Works. After that, we have 2 groups left. We have the community development and the school budget. When we get to the Board of Education budget, we basically control the bottom line number to them. You can make suggestions on line items that you might feel you want to cut, but the ultimate authority is with the Board of Education. Whatever number we give the Board of Education, they have total autonomy on, can spend it any way they want. Just to let you know. So, is there anybody else on general discussion?
I would like to make a couple comments, please.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. So I didn't get to jump in when the chief was here, but I wanted to echo so many of the things that were said, that they do a bang up job with not a lot of money. I would say my discussion point is if they can come back when we do our wrap up. It sounds like it's a little bit more intricate than just asking line items, and hopefully we'll have some more information on the contract at that point. So that would be my request, to make sure that we have a representative from fire at the wrap up to help us with anything we have questions with.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other point of discussion on the school, I know we've done this in the past, and I just would say, just put it out there that we did put some stuff into contingency last year to make it so that they were allotted the money, but it was contingent on making specific hires. So there are kind of ways to help and potentially make sure that what we're appropriating it for kind of goes to what we're asking them to do.
Right, and yeah, if we want to be definite specificity on a particular item, we would need to put it in contingency, and then when they spend that item, they come to us for the funds to pay for it.
Right,
And we did that last year.
Yeah, and I think that worked pretty slick. So
Yeah.
maybe there's an opportunity for that this year. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No. Remarks by Alderman? No, we don't need a non-public. Alderman O'Brien.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn by roll call.
Will you please call the roll?
Alderman Clemons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jette,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yep.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carried, and we're adjourned at 8:08 p.m. Thank you, everyone.